What to do with the with Hezbollah and other radicals in the region? Al Qaeda's leaders, for the most part, have been killed. We've seen the end of Gaddafi. We've seen the Arab Spring spread through all the Arab states, and despite the hypocrisy of the Arab leaders themselves, who are now asking for intervention from the West in Syria to remove Assad, either openly or publicly, openly or in secret, they themselves are riding, as Churchill said, on the back of the tiger, and they hold on to it tightly, and they don't want to wish to get off because they know the consequences, as every tyranny has. There are also other concerns in terms of global trade, as I said, with China and Russia's increasing influence in supplying gas to Europe and oil to Europe. If Europe intervened directly without the use of Turkey in Syria, the Russians might consider shutting off the gas and oil to supplies to Europe. It is a possibility that's always there as a worst case scenario, but I don't believe that, since Russia is so much invested in Germany rather than a mere $15 billion in Syria, it may well take the hit. But the tensions between Turkey and Russia and its various incarnations as the Tsarist Empire and also the Soviet Union go back many, many years. Russia's view of itself is it's on a two-track position. It has to appeal to its core Muscovy 40 million strong element, which is decreasing in terms of demographics as the Russian population is dying. At the same time, Russia is becoming increasingly a stronger military and economic power. Despite that fact, also by 2015, the Russian army will be majority Muslim, and the Russians have been particularly good as they expanded from west to east in adopting the Mongolic and Turkic and other Muslim peoples within its sphere, and it has been particularly adept at dealing with Muslim satellite nations such as Syria. But Turkey is a thorn in Russia's side. It is a NATO power, but it's a Muslim power dominating traditionally Orthodox Christian sites, because of course Turkey was the basis of the Eastern Roman Empire, and Moscow sees itself as the third Rome because of its Orthodox traditions which survived through the Soviet Union. So Russia itself sees Turkey as an existential threat, both culturally and strategically. It will try and protect its also pipelines that it has going through Turkey and the Caucasus from any interference by NATO, and that was what the war in Georgia was about. The other factor to take into consideration is if the Russians move their Black Sea fleet to support their forward operating base in Syria, this might mean a direct shadowing rather than confrontation between NATO and European assets on one hand and the Russians on another. Is Russia in that mood for a fight, though? From the diplomatic mission of the National Transitional Council of Syria, which is the political arm of the Syrian Free Army, it seems that Russia is open to negotiation, because who is ever in charge of Syria will be an asset to Russian foreign policy. it doesn't matter who is in charge to them, because Syria is simply a marketplace for them to sell arms to. Coincidentally, the amount of American arms that will be dumped by the US Army is a conduit of American arms towards Iran, because the Iraqis may well, as they've said, support Syria and Iran if there are sanctions on Syria. With the massive oil supplies that Iraq has and Iran has. For the Americans, it is more important perhaps to have Iran, as I said, as the Romans recognised, as a gateway to India, Pakistan and China. The Americans are making the same logical continuation of the thought process, in that Iran could be, with its pro-American Indo-European culture, despite the fact that it has a militant Shiite government which is based on a sort of constitutional monarchy and parliament system, and Ahmadinejad is not the leader of Iran, it's the supreme leader. It's like a monarchical, a king-like figure, a religious symbol, a symbolic figure. He is the one who's in charge, and he is the one who said that Iran is ready to fight the Americans if the Americans do make an attack, because America has already been involved in terrorist actions within Iran. So these are accusations all flying through the media, but with Iran being perhaps in future a more important country to the United States than perhaps even Saudi Arabia is, there's perhaps more scope for democracy in Iran, since it is in the most limited sense a democracy. Women have more rights in Iran than they do in Saudi Arabia, for instance. It's not a complete theocracy. It is a totalitarian state in Iran, or an authoritarian state. But Saudi Arabia is is a crime family, which is linked to 9/11, of course, through the Saudi and Bin Laden crime families. So the Americans have actually removed two of the greatest threats to Iran. Iran was going to invade Afghanistan before the Americans even contemplated it, before 9/11, to remove Bin Laden. So America's removed Bin Laden and Saddam Hussein, the two greatest threats to Iran. If Iran was to somehow convert the people of Pakistan from Sunni Muslims to Shia Muslims through infiltration, or through winning the conflict in Baluchistan between Iran and Al Qaeda, then you're in an even more dangerous situation, where the Pakistani nuclear weapons could fall into the hands of Iran. All things are in the process of flux at the moment. There's a movement towards conflict on a wider scale throughout the region, but hopefully Syria will sort out its problems internally, and the Arab Spring will continue to become a Persian Spring and bring democracy to Iran and to the wider world. Let's hope for it. Thanks for listening.